Hello, check 1, 2. Hello and welcome back to Avenger Park for this round 21 clash between
One, two. Welcome to Avenger Park. Fantastic derby. Dandenong City, Avondale FC.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Avenger Park. This round 21 clash between Avondale and Dandenong City. I'm Ross Papadakis, joined today by Peter Paleologos. Peter, big game today between two quite informed sides, I guess you could say. What are you expecting from today?
I think today we're going to see a pretty attacking game, both in a position where the season's on the line in terms of their progress. We know Dandy City in 7th place, close to finals action. And we know Avondale are looking for the premiership. They've got to keep the momentum to that big game against Heidelberg. So I'm looking for an attacking game today. The conditions quite blustery, but thank you for joining us, and I think it's going to be an exciting game, Ross.
Of course, and we'll go through the lineups while the teams are in their huddles. For the home side, the Avondale, in between the sticks today is number 21, Tom Marnos. Number 3, Daniel Edwards. Number 4, and captain Aidan Bryce. Number 6, Matthew Reid. Number 10, Manny Aguek. Number 11, Kerr. Number 13, Yite Towns. Number 24, Elman Wellsmore. Number 27, Luca Tavia. Number 41, Yusuf Ahmed. And number 80, Sian Cuba. And for the visitors, in between the sticks of them is number 31, Matthew Marum. And number 4, Corey Sewell. Number 6, Thomas Yanakopoulos. Number 8, Jamie Latham. Number 9, Kenny Athiu. Number 10, Yagub Mustafa. Number 13, Vali Sesnik. Number 15, Gaku Naba. Number 17 and captain for Hajduk is Danny Kim. Number 20, Diego Cuba. Number 22, Tim Arteniros. And we're seeing now, underway very quickly, Dandy City kicking to the left of the screen. Avondale the other way, and it's a free kick already to get us underway. Lucas Matia has the whistle in between in the middle of the park. Oof. And Avondale's chasing already here. There's Marum driving out of the back. It's a long ball up by Dandy. Headed on by Bryce. And on, and he's Tavir chasing. There's Naba. The long ball through. Free kick. And Lucas Matia is not having any of that action here in the opening minutes of this clash at Avenger Park.
Yeah, an early foul there, a few nerves, a bit of pressure building, but it's a fascinating narrative today. We've got an important clash, and we've got two brothers who are leading each side of side, the Cuba v Cuba. A derby and a derby, as I always say, so fascinating.
It is, yes, of course. Diego Cuba, the younger brother of Sian, just 22, Diego. Of course, signed from Auckland City, and that's a long ball into the box already, headed on. Cleared away by Bryce. There's a chance here to progress. And he's Kerker. It's out for a throw with Avondale. It will be taken. Down the line to Aguek, who's pushed off the ball and gone out for a goal kick. Matthew Marum in between the sticks, of course, replaces Pierce Clark, who is on the bench for today. Of course, Pierce Clark ever present in this Dandenong City side, the 27-year-old, replaced by 23-year-old Matthew Marum. Here he is now taking the goal kick, and it's long. It's knocked on by Cuba. Here's Athiu, again Cuba, and here's Athiu battling against Towns. We're going to take him out of the back by Reed. Pushed on, and there's Cuba. Pushed away by Danny Kim. And out wide again for Hajduk. And it's a grey ball down the line, and here is Cuba. Pushes it out for a goal kick. Tom Manos will take it quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a slower start by Avondale, but as you mentioned, there's been a change in the Dandenong City keeper. Pierce Clark been leading the line most of the season. Actually, he's one of the top shot stoppers. I think 71 shots stopped this year in terms of the NPL, but interesting keeper change. But that's what happens. I mean, you've got a lot of competitive tension in the squad. Everyone's playing for positions.
And here's Tavir driving. He's crossed the ball into the middle of the park. Just deflected near post. Of course, Avondale do play midweek against Sterling Macedonia in the Australia Cup. Of course, it will be played at Green Gully Reserve against the team from Western Australia. So that could explain some of the changes to them. It is Tavir will be taking the corner. And there's a couple of heads in the box, headed on by Ute Towns and then cleared. Another corner for the Avengers. Once again, Luca Tavir did come over from Green Gully, so he's familiar with that field on Tuesday night. And it's sent on, headed away. And here's Wellsmore. Cuba, back to Wellsmore. Goes all the way back. Bryce. Wellsmore. All the way back to Manos in between the sticks. And he's passing around the back, Avondale. Finding that open window, they've gone to Reed. Kerker. Bryce. To Kerker. And he's got Wellsmore in front of him. Here's Tavia. Cuba battling. But here's Towns. And Tavia's got his back to goal. Cuba knocks it on wide to Yusuf Ahmed. And he's dispossessed by Danny Kim. There's a chance now for Edwards to go backwards. Towns. Over to Bryce. Back to Manos. Slowing the game down a little bit. Avondale is. He's Cuba. Wellsmore. Long and through. And he's Aguek, who has a chance to strike, and it's gone straight through and cleared off the line by Danny Kim. It was almost 1-0 up for Avondale.
Yes, it was. It was good through ball, very aggressive passing there by Avondale, and just created that opportunity. I'm looking at the setups at the moment. Avondale with their 4-3-3, but obviously transitioning across. And then you're seeing Sewell playing sort of a left back, which is unusual for, I would say, for Dandenong City, playing a 3, maybe a 5-2, so a little bit different for them. But Avondale got behind them, so really exposed that first floor. And I think Corey Sewell on the left here against Kerr, that could be an avenue there for Avondale.
Yes, of course. We do know Avondale like to score late, but they also like to score early. The last time they did play each other, it was around 9. And it was a 3-0 win to the Avengers. Stephen Valentini, Luca Tavia, and Kerr scored a penalty late. Of course, Valentini is on the bench today, as well as Stefan Zinni, Blake Carpenter, Christian Chadzewski, and Jackson Courtney Perkins. Of course, potentially looking forward to that midweek clash in the Cup. Here's Towns. It goes wide, and here's Ahmed. Cross the ball in. Kerr was there. Doesn't quite get there. And there's Avondale bringing it out once again. Knocked on to try find Athiu. Doesn't get there. There's Towns. Goes back to Bryce. And over to Reed. And he's Wellsmore now. Tavia. Reed will go to his captain. Oh, and that's long. By Dan Edwards. And there's a chance here for Avondale. Get that opener. And here's Edwards now. Goes to Aguek. And it's a goal. Not. And cleared by Tim Athenrios. Is Towns. Wellsmore. Now Kerr's wide. And then he got one in front of him. Nice little step over from Kerr. Drives it along the floor. Aguek. Tavia. Back, and Wellsmore retrieves. Towns. Edwards. A lot of pressure on the Dandenong City defence here.
Aguek probably the wrong choice there. Probably should have shifted and taken a left, but really Avondale really showing their intention. 2 opportunities early on, just couldn't convert, and really and as you mentioned, Ross, they've got all this firepower on the bench as well. They're probably disappointed with their Doherty Cup earlier last week in terms of that outcome against South Melbourne. Probably a disappointing performance, I would say. But going forward, they've got the Australia Cup. They've got obviously looking for the premiership as well, trying to get in there. So they're showing their attacking mindset today.
They are, of course, and there's a lot of Victorian clashes to look forward to in that Australia Cup. But here's Kerr out wide. There's another step over again. Tries to cross the ball in. It is cleared, and it will be a throw for Avondale. Of course, as mentioned, Avondale is playing Stirling Macedonia. And the other fixture taking place in Melbourne is Heidelberg vs Western Bears. Of course, South Melbourne play away against South Hobart. And Darwin Olympic host Nunawading City. All of those taking place Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Next week, midweek, of course, with these teams playing on the weekend. So the fixture congestion will start catching up with a few of these teams later in the season. Of course, Heidelberg, top of the league of the NPL Victoria, do play South Melbourne in the Doherty Cup final, and here's Manos under pressure. Here's Towns. Brings out our defence. He goes to Tavia. To Kerr. Back to Tavia. And he's Towns. To Kerr. Then he goes long. There's Yanakopoulos. Oh, it's a free kick for Dandy City.
Just looking at Dandenong City, I can see that Latham's trying to track back with Cuba. That's an interesting matchup. But also we're seeing Danny Kim putting pressure on Teveray. Teveray's been one of the form players this year, since you mentioned Ross crossing over from Green Gully. Really effective player and really standing on his own and really trying to really make a name for himself in the NPL. So some really interesting matchups in terms of the early stages.
So of course he did get Player of the Month earlier in the season. One of the opening months of the season. He did score 4 goals and 2 assists last season, of course, as well. Of course, we do know as well, Sion Kuba did miss a couple of the first opening fixtures for Avondale, and Sevilla did play a more progressive role in his absence, but here's Kuba now. He pushes Arthenios on the floor, and here's Sion Kuba to Kerr, back to Kuba. And deflected. And here's a chance to City now. Here's Kim. Wellsmore. And Reed to Bryce. All the way over to Wellsmore. Here's Kerr. Play slowing the game down a bit, going back to his centre-back and his captain, Bryce. Oh, and Kenneth nearly gets the better of the centre-back partnership. And he's long, and he's Tavia. And it's offside for Avondale.
I'm just looking at the right side here, Ross, and I can tell Wellsmore has been one of probably a great signing earlier on in the season here for Avondale. They've got Kerr. They're really trying to stretch right to the byline in terms of Dandenong City, and the Dandenong City players are probably staying inwards. That could be a concern later on, especially if you're going to go for in terms of crosses. So that's something to look out for. But early on, Avondale have shown their intent, very attacking, and they wanted probably an early goal.
Yes, of course. Wellsmore was born in Adelaide, obviously a New Zealand youth international. Here is City. I'm guessing he's a theory now up against UT Towns. And Ani Aguek is pushed to the floor. There's a chance for City. Arthenios. Kim. Atheu. He goes wide and doesn't quite get to Mustafa. But yes, Wellsmore did score that winning goal in the NPL final against South Melbourne. Of course, 4 Oakley Cannons at the time came over to Avondale. Here's Kerr. Tavia. Still Tavia. He goes wide to Yusuf Ahmed. Slow ball into the middle of the park to Towns. Slips. Aguek. Wide. It's Edwards. Crossed by Edwards and deflected out by Sesnic. And there will be another corner. Looks to be Sion Kuba to take as well.
The interesting thing about Dandenong City this year, they've had 3 players that played all game. They've had a consistent 3 who played all the games, and very important to them, Sesnic, Kim and Kuba.
So of course, and here's Sion Kuba now with the corner. And it's a long arching ball into the box. Nearly headed into his own goal by Kenny Athiu. And there he goes, cleared by Inaba. Then here's Bryce. Goes to Towns. Then Reed. Wellsmore. Both centre backs passing the ball around. Kerr. Wellsmore back to Kerr. And back to Bryce. He finds Reed. And he's got Edwards driving down the wing. And Towns. Trips. Free kick for Avondale.
Yeah, a lot of experience there by G'day Towns. Drew the foul and knew where to be because he didn't pretty much have many options. It's interesting with the Dandy City. Theranos playing a little bit deeper, and Cuba is playing a little bit more forward, trying to support Athau. And then we know Athau's been one of the most dangerous strikers in the NPL. So their setup's a little bit different today, but it's quite interesting that the way they've sort of set up. Because the other thing is, I'm watching Danny Kim. He's a captain, and he's showing quite a bit of scanning and leadership because he knows that Avondale always can try to get behind.
Yes, of course. Here he is now, Sion Cuba, with the free kick. He does go into the box, straight into the arms of Marum. Of course, Danny Kim did begin his youth career at the FA Centre of Excellence. The son of former South Korean international Kim Pan-Kwen, a World Cup appearance player, I guess you could say, for South Korea. We'll touch on his rest of his career in a bit, but here's Kerr. Tavia. Scanning the pitch and goes wide to Yusuf Ahmed. And it's gone back out, and it's going to be Daniel Edwards to take the throw. And he tries to find Aguek. Mustafa. Is Cuba. And Wellsmore again. And Towns. Back to Bryce. To Kerr now. He has space to drive. He'll go on the inside. And he's looking for the pass into the box, but goes back to Towns. And Towns to Bryce. To Reed. Kerr. To Wellsmore. To Via. Dispossessed. There's a chance here. It's slapped up nicely by Reed. Once again, pushed back out. And it has gone out for a throw.
Yeah, the last few minutes, really, Avondale been pinning back Dandenong City. Dandenong City playing a little bit more of a low block there, trying to ensure that no one gets behind them. But they're giving Avondale dictating the play. And Tevere and Diego Cuba having those sort of maestro players in the midfield can always unlock your defence.
And here's Marum. He goes to Inaba. Saul. Athenios. Saul. Athenios again. Saul. And it's gone back out. And here's Wellsmore. Take the throw. Goes short to Tavia. Back to Reed. To Bryce. And he's got Edwards out wide, but he will drive forward himself. Still Bryce. He finds Edwards out wide. Crossed the ball in. Offside is the call. And I thought that was very close. I'm sure about you, Peter, but...
Yeah, very close. And that's probably the second or third time Edwards has really got a bit of a license to get behind. And that's the second, probably third time he's got behind and get that pass. That would have been very, very close. That's an ominous sign for Dandenong City. Looks like the wing backs are really getting behind them a little bit, and Kerr as well. So Dennis said, you've got to watch that.
Of course, that's happened on multiple occasions, and Naba and Danny Kim have done well there to do with them these times, but later in the game when there's tired legs and there's everything going against them, you have to see that will be the difference maker. But here's Wellsmore, who does cross the ball in, and here's Yusuf Ahmed. Nice touch by Yusuf Ahmed, but he's Mustafa against Ahmed, and out. It'll be a corner. Cuba to take. Of course, also on the bench for Dandy City is Oscar Colgate-Jones, Jake Noble, Johnny Gurditch, Malik Abuzba, and Jackson Lino. But Cuba's taken the corner, and it's strike from distance along the floor, and Matthew Marum does retrieve it. Goes low to Sewell. Latham. Back to Sewell and Long. It has gone out this time and into the pavilion. It's taken. Yusuf Ahmed. Back to Bryce, and here's Kerr. There's a nice outward ball to Luca Tavio. Crosses the ball in again. And once again cleared. This time by Thomas Yanakopoulos. Another corner.
Yeah, Thomas Yanakopoulos, very interesting player. He was actually as one of the top young guns coming through the NPL. So good to see him getting a start and getting that opportunity.
Of course, coming over from Adelaide Comets to Dandy City, and it's taken corner. When Edwards is back post, there's still a chance, not out of danger. Tavia along the floor, another chance for Tavia, and it's over the top, and it's just deflected wide for another corner for Avondale.
Tavia will be disappointed in that. He had a second ball come at him, and great opportunity, and just maybe there were too many bodies in front of him to be able to get that placement, but he would be disappointed. That was an opportunity early on for him.
This was, of course, it will be Sion Cuba to take the outward corner here, and he does go in, claimed by Maron, and it's everyone back for Dandy City, so they don't have anyone forward right now for the counter-attack. But here is Cuba. Goes along to Athenios, headed away by Wellsmore, but it's miscommunication, and here's Sewell. Athenios tries to go around Wellsmore. It does turn nicely. It goes to Kerr. Aguek tries to flick on. There's Anaba. Still Anaba. Athenios, Anaba. Latham goes to Cuba. Still Cuba against his brother, and he does get the better of him, the older brother. But he's Aguek now driving, and he's got to get past, says Nick, but he doesn't. And there will be another throw with Edwards. It's taken already. Bryce down to Edwards, to Ahmed. Cuba. Ahmed to Edwards. We saw this just a few minutes ago down that left-hand side. And it's offside again for Avondale.
Yeah, we saw that Cuba on Cuba again, but Sean Cuba's done a lot of work. He's actually been going between the centre midfield, helping the defence, been a false nine. He's quite mixing it up really. Probably got a licence to wonder. Dandenong City a bit slow on the transition. Theranos finally getting in some position, being a dangerous player this year, but just really not really being able to really get forward that quickly, and Avondale been really quickly to recover. So Dandenong City got to get it faster on that transition in this game.
Of course, they do have Kenny Athu up top, has got 9 goals to his name this season. Of course, Manny Agawek, the 13 to his name. Then a strike from distance by James Latham, but it has gone wide to Manos. There, does retrieve and goes short to his left back. And Mustafa's chasing. Towns. To Ahmed, back to Edwards. It's the same thing here. Will Mustafa deal with it? He doesn't. Goes into Miller Park. Agawek. Cuba. Slowing the game down the middle. And here's Ahmed. Knocked on just. And pushed up Enios. He's got Kirker chasing him. Cuts back to Latham. Sewell. Back to Latham. He's back to goal. Goes over to Sesnik. Yanakopoulos. Got to Mustafa. To Thiu. Tripped. And he's Bryce who brings it out of defence. Finds Kirker out wide. Sewell again. Gets a bit of him. Cuba. Towns. Edwards. To Cuba. Knocked on to Kirker. Nice little backhill by Kirker. And here's Sion Cuba. He's got 4 ahead of him. He doesn't get the better. It's gone wide to Athenios. Sewell. Dealt with nicely by Sewell. And he's Reed. To Tavia. Backwards to Bryce. And Reed to Worldmore. Just slowly babying the ball around the fence, Avondale, waiting for that open window. Of course, they like that left-hand side. We've seen a couple times in this first half. Manny Agawek dropping deep. There's Reed with the long ball. Tries to find Yusuf Ahmed, doesn't get there.
Disappointing there by Reed. Got to look, especially when you've got the players in front of you. Chan Cooper showing his inventiveness, trying different things, just not coming off right at that last minute. But you can see that Avondale are trying to mix it up. They're moving the players across. Is it Tevere pushing forward, Chan Cooper coming a little bit back and then pushing forward, Kirk coming back and pushing forward. So they're really trying to mix it up to unlock Dandy City. But I have to give credit to the keeper of Dandy City. Looks very steady. Hasn't really been made the big save, but he's really he's really done well and positioning himself well, especially with the firepower that Avondale have.
Yes, of course, also absent from this side is George Ott. Of course, injured. And Joey Katabian also missing. Of course, sustained an injury earlier in the season. Cuba. Here's Kirker. Still Kirker gets around Athenios. Cuts back. Cross the ball into the middle of the park. Knocked on. And it's just wide of the post and it's kept in. And it's gone out. It's almost a goal there for UT Towns.
Bit of a missed opportunity there. Ahmed would be disappointed. That was a very big opportunity. Dandenong were all over the place, but unfortunately the finish wasn't there for Avondale. But an interesting thing you said, Ross, here. You mentioned a couple of players also out. Katebian, Ott. Really, if you look over this squad of Avondale, probably one of the strongest outside the A-League, and with the second division coming up, or the second division type championship coming up, it's a squad really that's got to be one of the favourites. And it's going to be very interesting to see when that comes on board. I know we're talking a while away, but we've still got the NPL to finish and what's going to happen in this NPL season. But the repertoire of players, the squad, unbelievable type of players, a lot of solutions, really something that Avondale probably lead in Victoria, but also across I would say, Australia.
Yes, of course, we do know Avondale did not make any signings in this window that has just passed. Of course, Dandy City with just the one. But curious to see if there is a transfer window that will open for these sides. Of course, we are unfamiliar right now with squad registration rules, etc. So we are unaware of if they do need to make signings. Of course, they do have Preston Lions in their group, as well as the NPL Premier for Football New South Wales. and the premier of Capital NPL. That right now is Canberra, Croatia. And we'll get confirmation of who currently is leading as things stand in New South Wales NPL. There is Macaroni Stallions, who already have a place in this competition, so it'll be Rockdale Illidan against Avondale, Canberra, Croatia, and Preston Lions in that group. Of course, Preston Lions, South Melbourne. We've seen there will also be one other team from Victoria entering that competition as well, the Premier, or the highest ranked team rather. That is Heidelberg as things stand. There's Kerr. Goes back to Bryce. Towns. Reed. Back to Towns. There's Wells, more bit of miscommunication. Tavia. And Reed. Towns. Back to Reed. And Long. And he's Aguek dropping deep. And he's got Kerr to the right of him. And he will go to him. And he's got Saul to beat. Step over through the middle. And it's a free kick just at the edge of the box for Avondale. And that's what Kerr does best in Avondale colours.
Yeah, Kerr showed it. Mustafa, probably the wrong foul there. Body check. But no, Kerr, always a dangerous player. One of the major crossers in this league. Gets in really good positions in order to get that ball in. And again, in that right on the box, in one of the smaller pitches in the NPL, creating that havoc.
Will be a free kick now with Kerr and Sion Hubert standing over it. Because it is everyone back for Hajduk. There is Luka Tavia lurking at the edge of the box. Of course, he does like to hit him. He's 4 goals this season, Luka Tavia. There's Kerr. Cleared by Danny Kim. And he's Tavia now. He's got Kenny Theory chasing him down, but Tavia deals with it nicely. Spins, crosses the ball in, headed on. Just wide once again, and it's into the arms of Matthew Marum.
Yeah, just missing Avondale, probably 4 or 5 opportunities here. There were a couple of offsides. Just missing that end product at the moment, but really putting a lot of pressure on Dandy City, who really, as you mentioned, Ross, all players are back, especially on the corners, in order not to concede. So a lot of pressure by Avondale. But the other interesting point you made about the second division is there going to be a transfer window? Are other players from NPL clubs get a chance to play for the 4-5 Victorian clubs in the second division? That's an interesting one. We saw with the Club World Cup, there was a special transfer window for teams to be able to sign players. And that may happen in the second division in terms of Avondale or South Melbourne or Preston or maybe Heidelberg if they finish in that competition, to be able to sign players from other NPL clubs.
And here's Wellsmore now driving. And he goes to Ahmed and to Edwards. Puts the ball in again. It's just wide of the near post. Of course, one name that always comes up in these conversations with NPL Victoria, National Second Tier Australian Championship, and Avondale is one of George Mel's. Of course, very successful here at this Football Club. Avondale did win that grand final, won the NPL double. Only player in the league to have won the NPL Victoria double and the A-League double. You'd think he would run his team, and he's Tavia. To Edwards. It's just knocked away, and it will be another corner.
You mentioned George Mel's. I'm sure that George Mel's or other players will be looked at. The interesting thing is, will loan players be allowed? Like, can you have, A-League or other NPL loan players in the second division? But we'll talk about that a bit later. Let's get this corner.
And it's taken straight away by Sion Cuba. It's dealt with very nicely by Matthew Marum. And he goes quick. He's Latham. And he's got Mustafa and a theory ahead of him. He goes wide to Saul. He's got that. Kerr slips. Does go down the line again. And here's Cuba against Kerker. Driven along the floor, Tom Manos. It will be a corner, rather, for Dandy City. And it will be Cuba to take. Not many people in the box for Dandy City here. They've just got in there. Mustafa looking for the short, but Cuba sends it into the park. And it's gone over the top of everyone. And Anaba's chasing. Bryce. Another throw.
Yeah, Manos got there. Sewell got in a good position for that header, unmarked, and Manos just got there on top of his head. It could have been a dangerous moment, and been few dangerous moments for Dandy City. We haven't seen much from them, but all it takes is that one opportunity too, and set pieces are where a lot of things happen.
It is, of course. Avondale do love to score goals. We do know that. Of course, we've scored quite a few this season. So rather a matter of if, it's a question of when will they break that deadlock. And it's sent long by Tom Manos. Of course, we heard him talking earlier, a couple of weeks ago, on a podcast, the atmosphere around this football club. Everyone loves this club, everyone wants to play for this club, of course. Valentini rejoined Avondale after a stint in Germany and Oakley Cannons. Of course, in that side with Wellsmore that won that NPL Grand Final. But he's back at Avondale now, of course. And there's Edwards, Cuba. Kim driving, and he's got Athenios. And it's sent wide and it's crossed into the box. Not quite 21, but Sewell's chasing, and he's got Kerker on pressure. Shouts for out, and it has gone out, and it will be a throw in for Avondale.
Yeah, we haven't seen much in terms of the Theranos. 4 goals this year, been quite an effective player. As I mentioned, one of the young players that is coming through. But we've got 2 of the top strikers here who haven't had any opportunities. Agwek, 14 goals. Kenny Ethau, 10 goals this year and been one of the leading lights in this competition. But both of them haven't had many opportunities, Ross.
And of course, they haven't. Still anyone's game here, of course, 0-0 here at Avenger Pass. And Lucas Marti is not having any of that from Corey Sewell. Foul throw, I think the call is. Of course. Jack Webster and Brad Plant also absent from this Dandy City side. Of course, 2 big names. There's Wellsmore. It's a bit under pressure, but it's kept in by Mustafa. And it will be a throw. Wellsmore. Long. So, Agwek. Sewell. Still Sewell. And he's got Ahmed ahead of him. And it's a free kick.
Yeah, Ross, I've been talking to a lot of football agents, especially Victorian football agents, about obviously with the A-League window open. I've seen a couple of players from the New South Wales NPL get opportunities, trial or maybe a signing. There have been 1 or 2 signings. We haven't seen many from Victoria, and this is a common theme and a disappointing theme, actually. Why aren't some of these players on trial at A-League clubs? And that's something, a narrative that hasn't really been explained, especially recently, when you've got so much talent on. And we're looking at it today. We've got 2 teams with a lot of capable players. Now, there might be other factors at play, but it is disappointing to see. You know, I know it's towards the end of the season. Maybe the NPL clubs may not want to release 1 or 2 of the key players. However, this is a time where players do get the A-League trials, and we're not seeing enough of that Victorian NPL players getting those opportunities. a foul there, a shot. Will be disappointed a little bit in that. Should have done a little bit better. Haven't seen much of him, but yeah, there are a lot of players here who should be really getting some sort of look in or opportunity.
Of course, we have seen a few of them play in A-League academies in the past. One that sticks out is Yusuf Ahmed, of course, former Melbourne City youth player. Did win the Rising Star Award in 2018. Here's Sion Kula, and he's got Yusuf Ahmed ahead of him, and he does go to him, and he'll cross the ball in first time. Deflected off Saul, and it has gone out. And he will probably take the corner as well. Of course, Wellsmore also came through A-League Academy as well through Brisbane Roar. And here's Cuba to take the corner. It won't be. It'll be Kerr. Sends the ball in and it's headed on. It's just over the bar by Matt Reid.
Great effort by Matt Reid. Came in deep. Timed his header. Just got a little bit under it over the top. But a great opportunity there. And just showing... This is where Avondale don't just have threats up front. They have it on set piece. They have an array of midfielders who can also score. So they'll be actually a little bit disappointed they're not 1-0 up at the moment. They've had most of the play, most of the opportunities. Yes, there's been a couple of offsides, but also probably a little bit that final touch, that end product I spoke about, that polish. And one player who's impressed me a lot is Edwards as well, because he's managed about 3-4 runs on that left wing or left side, playing as a left back, but pretty much a wing back. Been able to get balls in, get in behind, but just not getting that final finish or that final cross in order to be converted.
Yes, of course. It's just 4 minutes left on the clock here at Avenger Park. Tavia goes backwards to Wellsmore. And it looks like Kerr and Yusuf Ahmed have swapped wings as well. Maybe that will help them out a little bit. Of course, Kerr's on that side of Dan Edwards. We've seen been very progressive in the first opening half here. And that's Saul knocks it on. Ahmed passes it to Athiu. He's Latham. He's gone through. Mustafa up against Wellsmore. And out. Manos. We'll get it on to quickly. And here's Edwards. We've just spoken about. He's got Kerr ahead of him. And he'll drive himself though. Still Edwards. Still Edwards goes wide to Kerr, but that's a bit of an unfortunate ball, but it finds Kerr still. Crosses the ball in, just wide once again. And that was better from Avondale.
Yeah, that's good. Ross, that's what you look at players. Can players alternate positions? Are they multidexterous, etc.? Kerr switching the wing with Ahmed. That's, see if they can get behind, because we know that Edwards on that wing is also causing some damage. So Avondale changing a little bit of their tactics.
And it's headed on by Kerr. And again, shouts for a handball, but it's okay. Here's Wellsmore. Tavia. Edwards. Back to Bryce. And now he's Aguek. And it's pushed outwards by Sesnick. Of course, Kerr, one of the other players that has spent some time in an A-League academy, Brisbane Roar. He played 5 games for Brisbane Roar's NPL side. Also spent some time in the Serbian top flight for Novi Pavar. Of course, also from Adelaide City, Croydon Kings and Modbury Jets. And of course, also capped at internationally level for South Sudan, alongside Matty Aguek. Athenios knocks it on. And Reid's under pressure by Mustafa. And goes back to Manos. Manos goes wide and he's under pressure here. And a strike just wide of the post by Tim Athenios.
Theranos couldn't believe his eyes. Intercepted from Manos. Had an opportunity. Probably could have done better there. Should have put that on target and tested Manos, who was scamping back and trying to basically scramble and make sure he didn't concede that goal. But Theranos will be disappointed. been a very effective player this year. Has created quite a few assists and 4 goals, as I mentioned earlier. But really got to put a better finish there, because Dandy City, especially in this first half, have not really created the opportunity. So whatever comes their way, they've got to be a little bit more efficient.
Of course, elsewhere around the grounds, there are no men's fixtures off right now, but South Melbourne women's are down 1-0 against Box Hill, and Alamein are drawing with Hexham Royals 1-1. And their fourth official has indicated a minimum of 1 minute will be added on to this clash here at Avenger Park. And it's, of course, 0-0. Wellsmore to take the throw. He goes to Cuba. Mustafa. Saul. Bryce. Anaba. Goes back to Maram. And Long. Bryce. Fakes and goes back to Manos. Reed. And they'll probably see the half out here, Avondale. Slowing the game down a little bit, but there is time. Ahmed and out for another throw. Wellsmore. Ahmed. And that's full half time here at Avenger Park. 0-0. Avondale and Dandenong City. What needs to be said at half time for them to be changes?
Look, maybe it's a little bit early for the changes, Ross, but if I was Dandy City, I'll actually be happy with this 0-0. I think Avondale have been able to unpack them and get behind quite a few times, and we mentioned Edwards earlier, Kirk Kerr also alternating. However, no goals, and I think Dandy City haven't had many chances. They'll probably be the happier of the two sides. We may see some changes, but there's still a lot in this game. We've got 2 attacking teams. We know that...
Let's go!
Second half, Ross.
Of course, we'll be back in 15 minutes for some more NPL men's action. Thanks for joining us for that first half. We'll be back shortly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back.
Let's go.
Thought Avondale played quite well as well in the first half, which is interesting.
They did. Maybe it's a bit of a tactical change looking forward to the Australia Cup. But you mentioned Trachevsky. Actually, he was quite unlucky. I think he was going to trial at Central Coast. I think COVID hit. We had the pandemic. And that took 2 years away from a lot of players. So he should be a player that, for me, Ross should be in the A-League. He's got the repertoire. He's got the pedigree, and somebody who, unfortunately, just timing wasn't right. But he's one of the players that should be in the A-League from this NPL, and a great replacement. I mean, Tevere's been a form player this year. When you come with someone like Trachevsky, that shows the club's ambition.
Of course, he's only 26, Christian Trachevsky. I guess the best showcase is that Australian Championship and the Australia Cup, of course. So, who knows, could play against an A-League side and everything could change for him. Much like everyone else in this Avondale side, of course. But we're back underway. And here's Yanakopoulos. This to Nanaba. And Mustafa. And there's Towns. Wellsmore. And he goes long, and the wind's just started picking up here at Avenger Park as well. Could have some say in the rest of this game. There's Reed. He goes to Bryce. And feeds it long down the line to Kerr. Kuba. Miskicks it. Headed on by his brother. Bryce. Under pressure by Bryce. And here's Towns. Aguek. Tries to tricky ball through the middle, but here's Dan for Hajduk to capitalise. And it's dealt with very nicely by Aiden Bryce. Aguek. Kerr. There's Kuba, and Kerr's got a chance now. Chasing Inaba. And it has gone out. It will be Hajduk. Thoreau. Mustafa. Tries to find Atiu. Held back. It's a free kick.
Yeah, for most of this game, Kenny Atiu has been pretty much having to push so far up and not into the box to pick up the ball. So that's not where Dandy City really want to be, especially they have been an attacking team this year. And one player who's actually been very quiet for me is the 13, Sesnik. He's a key player for Dandy City. He's actually in the top 2, top 3 one-on-one dribblers in the league. And we haven't seen much of that, although he's got the ball now. Let's see.
Cross, and here's Cuba. Parthenios. Goes into the middle of the park. Here's the new substitute, Trachevsky. Goes backwards to Ahmed. Bryce. Goes to Kerr. Then Kerr backwards to Bryce once again. He drives and he's tackled. And it will be their throw still. Of course, as mentioned, Sesnik began his senior career at South Melbourne before moving to the Netherlands. Did make 8 appearances in the junior Eredivisie. And that's a dangerous tackle there and a yellow card for Yitte Towns by the looks of it.
Yeah, a tough tackle there by Yitte Towns early on in this second half. it's interesting that Dandy seem to be a little bit more ambitious starting, I would say. They're getting a little bit more confidence. We've seen Mustafa take on a few more players. We didn't see that in the first half. It is obviously early days, but they've taken the pressure from the first half, maybe coming out a little bit more ambitiously. And this is an important game. Both teams need to win this for momentum. We mentioned earlier Dandy City. They're just outside the 7. They've got to keep in touch, keep winning. And we've got Avondale. They can't afford to lose points here because a draw here or even a loss, they'll be behind Heidelberg. So very important game, finely placed, and hopefully we'll see a more attacking second half.
And here's Athenios. Sesnik. Oh. And he's back up on his feet. And he will take the throw. Of course, did also spend some time at Port Melbourne Sharks, says Nick. He's backwards. Inaba. And wide. And Mustafa taking on players. And has gone out for a throw, and it will be Sewell to take the throw. Goes on into the middle of the park. Latham. To Kim. Backwards to Yanakopoulos. And wide to Sesnik. He's taking on players. He goes all the way back to his goalkeeper in Maram. Oh, and under pressure once again. Dayanava does send a through ball. Matt Reid sliding retrieval. Chajeski. Nice turn. Goes backwards to Bryce.
Early on the week, then did a little bit of research on Avondale, Ross, and in terms of passes, through passes, smart passes, certain ways you define it, they're more attacking passes into the box or progressing forward. They're number 1 in the league. We haven't seen that much. The more of an approach here today is more through the wings. We're looking at, obviously at Kerr, Ahmed, and Edwards. But they are a team that can get those progressive passes. That's something they need to probably push in this second half because they haven't been able to unlock or unpack Dandy City defence at this stage.
Yes, of course, it is still anyone's game here. 50 minutes on the clock with just a singular change for Avondale. That's sent long by Bryce. And Ahmed's there. And it's sent all the way backwards by Danny Kim. And Maram under pressure. Knocks it on to Sesnik. Cuba. Town. Ahmed. Back to Bryce. Here's Cuba. Oh, and I think he gets there. Here's Ahmed. Sesnik. Athenios. Into Miller Park to Latham. Pushed off the ball, and it's a free kick.
Latham, well positioned there, took the foul, and here's a chance now for Dandy City. We haven't seen many attacking forays, but they're actually, it's quite interesting that in terms of corners, they're one of the leading teams, and they really haven't been pushing that, especially that set piece, because that's one of their strong points. But we may see that in this second half.
And here's Cuba, who goes wide to Athenios. He's got time to cross, and Dan Edwards gets in front of him. Of course, Dandenong City next week do take on Oakley Cannons. Of course, they did just beat Hume City 4-0. So they are in firing form. Avondale, on the other hand, play Altona Magic in Altona. Of course, Altona Magic do play South Melbourne today at 5 p.m. Following that is that Heidelberg game for Avondale. A real 6-pointer up the top of the league. Pretty much defines who wins the league here. There's Mustafa. It goes to Cuba. And Cuba goes over the bar.
Yeah, disappointing effort there by Cuba. I mean, there is a bit of wind, and that's blustering, so obviously puts a little bit of pressure on the ball. But good start by Mustafa in his second half. First half very quiet, or a couple of little errors, but now he's making a lot more. He's got that engine and able to create some damage.
And here's Kerker. Dispossessed by Saul. And it's sent long now, and there's Latham, who feeds Mustafa. Mathieu knocks it on. Mustafa, and a chance here. And he crosses the ball into the middle of the box to Latham. And it's dealt with very nicely by Aiden Bryce.
What a chance. I just mentioned Mustafa early. He just created everything. Just that final end product, that final pass would have split Avondale and just didn't get it right. And a missed opportunity. And they haven't had many opportunities, Dandy City. So he'll be disappointed with that. You can tell his body language. He's speaking a little bit to Kenny Athau. They'll know that was a chance for Dandy.
And something must have been said at half-time for him, because he's turned it on this last 10 minutes of this game. Arthenios knocks it on. Sesmic. Goes back to Marum. And here's Giannakopoulos. Sesnick. Headed on by Edwards. Again by Arthenios. And Dan Edwards goes backwards to Manos. Manos long. Ahmed. Kuba got two ahead of him. Gone out. And there will be his throw, and he does it quickly. Arthenios. Latham. Turns. Goes backwards to Anaba. And Cuba's battling against Mustafa. And it goes back the other way, and here's Cuba. Here's Kerker. Still Kerker. Long to Dan Edwards, and he's got time. He's only got one to beat. He crosses the ball in. And no one is there. And that's good football from Avondale.
Yeah, Edwards again gets his opportunity. Really caused a lot of damage in that first half. Got loose on the second, and good cross. Agwek just probably couldn't get there. It just a little bit came across, but that's the ability of Avondale, really quick on transitions. Now, Dandy City, that 5-10 minutes of good pressure there, probably with a high press. They can really put pressure on Avondale, but Avondale, as we know, we just saw that, very quick on transition, able to get players into the box and create those opportunities.
Of course, on the bench for Dandy City is number 1, Pierce Clark, number 14, Oscar Colgate-Jones, number 21, Jake Noble, number 24, Donny Gurditch, number 30, Malik Asuba, and number 38, Jackson Lino. And here's Avondale progressing once again. There's Wellsmore. This is Trajeski. And down the line to Agwek. He's got a chance and he tries to cross the ball in. Still in. And here's Kerker. Kerker. His quick feet from Kerker. Goes backwards. And he's Latham. Fahajuk. Goes to Kim. Mustafa. There's Towns now. Wellsmore. To Towns. Goes backwards to his captain in Bryce. And wide to Edwards. He's progressing. He spins. He's got Yusuf Ahmed. And Yusuf Ahmed will drive to the middle of the park. Knocked on. And saved by Matthew Marum.
Yeah, we saw there in the previous phase, Giannakopoulos, an important interception. And one thing we overlook with Dandy City is in terms of the NPL, Victoria, they're the second most team that in terms of interceptions, defensive interceptions. So they're compared to probably the last few years, their defence has been one of their mainstays and one of their strong points in this sort of league this year in their run. And that's what they rely on as a springboard with their attacking also options. So, yeah.
And here's Ahmed. He goes backwards to Towns. And here's Wellsmore now playing more centrally. He goes to Reed. Wellsmore. Reed to Kerker. Goes backwards to Towns. is Bryce. To Edwards. Towns. Ahmed. And he goes backwards to Towns. Still Towns, and he's Trzajeski now. Cuba to Trzajeski. Knocked on again. And Bryce is under pressure.
Yeah, Avondale, the number one progressive, I would say, runs and passing team in the NPL. You got Dandy City, who are really playing a bit of zonal, a bit of hybrid defending, a bit of man marking. I see Kim's always trying to pick up Cuba. Got Latham also trying to put pressure on, but they're also doing zonals. Avondale have got the players to unlock, but we haven't seen that final pass, and that's going to be sort of the last 30, 40 minutes here, whether Avondale can get that final pass to break down Dandenong.
It looks like there will be a triple change coming on for Avondale. We did mention that firepower on the bench for them, and they're doing 3 in one go. And here's Avondale, though, with a chance. And here's Yusuf Ahmed, who can put him 1-0 up, and he does! Yusuf Ahmed breaks the deadlock, and it's 1-0 to Avondale.
Excellent finish by Yusuf Ahmed. Really just powered in. Knew he was going to take the shot. Made the ground, and just fantastic placement. And we've seen him in good positions. We haven't seen the end product from him, but on this occasion you can tell the determination, surging into the box, and a great finish. Could be a little bit injured there. Had a little bit of collision. I don't know if with Giannakopoulos it may have been, but really a great finish. And Avondale been knocking on the door, and that was the opportunity, and just something. And Ahmed, a classy player, as you mentioned, Ross, someone who's had a pedigree, has to make those finishes, and that is the 1-0. A few changes coming up for Avondale as well.
Yes, there's triple change for Avondale. Coming on is number 22, Stephen Valentini, number 7, Stefan Zinni, and number 25, Jackson Courtney Perkins. Coming off is Sian Cuba, Kerr, and the goal scorer, Yusuf Ahmed. Of course, Stefan Zinni, sometime at Melbourne City, South Melbourne, Western Sydney Wanderers, back at South Melbourne, Avondale, and did spend some time at Western United on loan. Stefan Valentini, of course, Women's Technical Director at Oakley Cannons, did join Avondale. Also spent some time in Germany's 4th tier, and Jackson Courtney Perkins, Southwest Queensland Thunder, also 6th tier of Germany, and previously of Port Melbourne Sharks, of course. And that's a great spin by Artheniros, and they want a goal back, and he can do one here. It's just wide once again on the post. Shouts for a penalty, I think, but it will be a goal kick.
Atherinar showing his repertoire of skills. We haven't seen much of that in this game, but he has that ability, and really just caused havoc and panic in the Avondale defence there. Just couldn't get the finish point. There was a mention of maybe a penalty or a foul, but I think the referee was right in the right place there. And Avondale be able to bring on Zinni, Valentini. You got Courtney Perkins, as you mentioned, Ross. That's 3 very good players, and something that a lot of clubs are not able to cope, because you're able to bring those type of players on.
Of course, they have 7 goals between the 3 of them, so they do know how to score goals. And Edwards sends a long ball already to Zinni. Doesn't quite get there. And that's 4 changes for Avondale so far in this game. Dandy City, 0 changes so far. 63 minutes on the clock here. Of course, there is time to get one back, and they want it back. They've switched on after that goal. And that's a great tackle by Aidan Bryce, and it's gone out for a keeper kick.
Bryce showing his experience there. We're not far from the touchline or the coach's boxes over here. And you can see Dandy City are not happy. They thought there might have been a bit of a clip there on the Therinos, who really fantastic surge into the box, showed his skill.
There's a chance now for the substitute for Trzajeski, and it's cleared very nicely by Matthew Marum.
That's the danger, the counter punch by Avondale. I mentioned about progressive runs and progressive passes. Avondale are the leaders of that in the NPL, and just And Marin's impressed me. He's a keeper that understands the play and just got in there before Trzeski, but that's the danger of Avondale. You try to attack, maybe drop your concentration, and they can really damage you with the type of players they have.
Of course, Manny Aguek looks to have dropped a bit deeper as well. After Stefan Zini and Valentini have come on, of course, he does score goals, Manny Aguek. He's got 13. That's a strike from distance. It's very nice. Of course, Manny Aguek, one of those players in this Avondale side that has spent some time in an A-League academy, Central Coast Mariners. Of course, here's Trzeski, who's driving. He's got Edwards behind him. And Towns goes to Edwards. Back to Towns. And it's slowing the game down between Towns and Edwards. And that's Valentini. Wellsmore. Jack and Corny Perkins. And tripped, and it's a free kick.
You mentioned something interesting, Ross. Sometimes we underestimate a lot of the players in the NPL in Victoria, and I've always said it's the better than NPL. We have that debate with New South Wales, but you mentioned earlier how many of these players have played in overseas environments. Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Serbia you mentioned as well. So it's just a lot of these players have had overseas experience. Wales, England, Croatia. So there's a lot of players who've had an adventure or contract or professionally overseas in the NPL.
Yes, quite an interesting story as well. Here's Towns. Of course, there's Manny Aguek now. Did spend some time in Malta, played 4 games in the UEFA Conference League, rather. Also captain South Sudan, so there's a lot of players in this team that are also capped internationally. Of course, we do know Kenny Athiu also has international caps for South Sudan, as well as of course Manny Aguek. Yusuf Ahmed, Somalian international, and that's a long ball sent to Stefan Zini. Feeds the ball to Trzeski. Trzeski goes to Jackson Corny Perkins. Trzeski to Zini. Sent into the middle of the park again. It's claimed by Maram. Then he'll go to Sewell. He'll drive once again up the line to find Latham. He doesn't. It is Athiu. Kim. A free kick. Of course. Kenny Athiu is another one that has spent some time abroad, Cambodian and Malaysian leagues. Of course, he did play for Melbourne Victory, Heidelberg United prior to that. Of course, did win the 2017 Golden Boot, which earned him that cap in that South Sudan side. Of course, he is 32 years of age now, but he does know still how to score goals. Of course, not getting any worse in his older age. And his Mustafa up against Wellsmore. Still Mustafa.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, Ross. There is a pathway in terms of national team. You mentioned South Sudan. I know Sri Lanka looks at Australian players with that ancestry or heritage. It's very, very common. And we're going to see more of that as the second division or other players, teams are looking for national team players, and obviously with Australia being a very multicultural society, players are going to be looked at, especially from the smaller nations or nations who don't have a big footprint in football and looking to go places. And it's great that some of these players are getting to play internationally, not just for clubs, but for national teams, like you mentioned, South Sudan.
Yes, of course. A few boys in that Shim City side have been capped internationally for Sri Lanka, and that's a big ball into the box, but Tom Manos does get there. Of course, the likes of Wade Decker for Shim City, Dandenong Thunder rather, and it's a double change getting ready for Dandy City. And one of those players that have played abroad looks to be coming on very shortly. And here's City driving. That's Cuba to Mustafa. Mustafa strikes. Tom Manos does brilliantly there. And he will slow the game down a little bit in between the sticks. Bryce. To Valentini. Feeds Courtney Perkins. It's a great sliding tackle there. And there is two changes coming on, as mentioned. Coming off is Diego Cuba, of course, following his brother also leaving the pitch. And also coming off is Danny Kim. Coming on for them is number 14, Oscar Colgate-Jones, and number 24, Donny Gerdic. Of course, Donny Gerdic, born and raised in Croatia, did begin his professional career in the Croatian top flight for HNK Šibenik. He did progress through the youth ranks there, moved to Australia in July 2023, did play a few games for Western Sydney Wanderers. There's Jackson Courtney Perkins, who just knocks it out for a keeper kick. Of course, from that Western Sydney move, he did go to Slovenian top flight, signed to Sydney Olympic, and now at Dandenong City. Oscar Colgate-Jones, on the other hand, Australian born and bred. An Eltham Redbacks and Ringwood City Junior. Moved to Dandy City's youth program at just 17. This is his first game for their senior side. And here is Stefan Valentini. He cuts on the inside and the outside. And it's ball kept in, and he's got another opportunity here. Here's Edwards. Across the face of goal, and here's Trzeski. Still Trzeski. There's Edwards. Chipped. Free kick.
Interesting, he's mentioned Donny Gerdic actually met his father 4 or 5 years ago in Zagreb, and he was telling me how difficult it is with a lot of the Croatian players. A lot of talented players just don't get picked up, and obviously his son was in Šibenik, and he was telling me about Hajduk. We're talking about Dandy City, who are Hajduk, but we're talking about Hajduk Split. How many young talented players try to make it, and it's just very, very difficult. And good to see his son here. He played for the Australian, I think 17 or 20s. He was in the camp there. So he's come here to try to establish a career, and before that he was in Sydney Olympic and Western Sydney, as you mentioned, and now getting an opportunity to give it a go here in Victoria, and the Victorian NPL is attracting those type of players. But yes, I do know Donny Gurdic's dad, so it brings back a few memories. Very interested to see his son playing here in Melbourne.
Of course, we do know a lot of Croatian Australian talent, of course. Here is Manny Aguek. He goes wide, and that's a beautiful ball to Stefan Zini. Stefan Zini with the cross. He's got a chance. Jackson Courtney Perkins has just gone out. Of course, some Croatian Australian talent, of course, are the Skoko brothers. Of course, sons of Josip Skoko. They're spending some time in Australia, of course, as well as Alexander Pavlicic, who has actually announced his loyalties to Croatia, which is unfortunate, of course, come through the NPL system in the NPL New South Wales. And it's a corner that's gone all over the top. And there is another change coming on for Avondale. Coming on is Blake Carpenter, another one that has come through an A-League academy in Adelaide United, of course. And then coming on for Dandenong City is Malik Abuzba. Actually playing his first game for the seniors today. Malik Abuzba. Coming off is number 5, Matthew Reid. And coming off for Dandenong City is Jamie Latham.
Yeah, Latham's put in a lot of work, especially in the midfield, trying to box-to-box. Reid has had 2 chances with a header. He'll be disappointed. He thought he could get on the board there. Just missed that one. good to see a youngster, Aguba, I believe, the 30. Yeah, he's an interesting player, getting his opportunity, and it's good to see younger players getting those opportunities in the NPL. But you mentioned there's a lot of players who have played overseas and come back and have had careers. It's always difficult. And speaking to a lot of football agents around the world, which have those sort of connections, there's a lot of established footballers who can't get professional deals anymore. Ross, there's a lot of players, a lot of free players around. So that's something where the second division we mentioned before is very important. Another pathway that we need in Australia, because there's just not enough contracts, not enough opportunities.
And here's Zinni, and he's dispossessed, but he will take the throw. And he's got Blake Carpenter here. Goes backwards to Dan Edwards. Looks like Dan Edwards has moved to centre-back in this role, and Blake Carpenter slotted into that left-back position. Of course, maybe Dan Edwards has puffed out after all those runs he's been making, but there's a beautiful through ball. Done very nicely there by Sesnik. And here's Marum. Yanakopoulos. Naba. Donny Gurdic. Naba.
Yeah, big interception there just at that last minute. But Zinni has come on and scored 5 goals this year, showing it, nearly getting behind there, and another dangerous player that came on for Avondale. It's interesting that Sewell's playing as a left back. Haven't seen much of him in that sort of role, and he's getting forward as well. But these days players have to have a repertoire of skills. Got to have a bit of utility. They've got to be a little bit flexible, and we're seeing that a lot more in the NPL, Ross.
We have, of course, Dandenong City have turned it on since going 1-0 down. Of course, Avondale also have turned it on. Of course, they did make those 3 changes, but here's Jackson Courtney Perkins, who can make it 2. It's just over the bar, and that's almost 2-0 to the Avengers.
Yeah, Courtney Perkins, good opportunity. Inaba, who's been one of the leading players here for Dandy City, probably his first mistake for the game, just underread that. And Courtney Perkins, especially on this ground where you get pretty close to the box, doesn't take long to get to the box here. It's a smaller ground. Good opportunity, just to finish. Maybe should have been a bit more to the left or right of the keeper, but that shows the danger of Avondale. They have a lot of players who can really get in positions and dangerous positions.
Yes, and here's the substitute who passes to the young guy. It's Blake Carpenter, who just does very well there with the sliding tackle. But it will be Boozbar with the ball now. Goes wide to Athernios. Sesnic crosses the ball in, headed away by Dan Edwards. Player taken down. Free kick for Avondale. Of course, that change for Avondale does mean they have used all 5 substitutions. Of course, just the 3 for Dandy City. Potentially looking for some more. Of course, they're not out of this game just yet. There's the Abuzba. Athiu. Through ball. Cleared again by Bryce. Here's Anaba. Backwards to Gurdic. Abuzba. Into Athiu. And once again striked. And it's out by Athernios.
Yeah, Dandy starting to put a bit of a mid-block on Avondale, trying to push Avondale back. It's not a high press, but it is a bit of a mid-block in order to be able to get that possession. They have got, obviously, with Danny Athiu, one of the top scorers, Athernios looking dangerous. they can create those opportunities, but it's about possession. And also be careful on the transition that Avondale's been able to do.
And here's Corny Perkins. And out. And his Towns goes backwards to Manos. Here's Perkins again. Across the ball in. It's dealt with once again nicely by Naba. Of course. Did spend some time in the J2 and the J3, so we do know the quality that's in Japan. Of course. Similarly to that of the new signing by South Melbourne. Yuzo. Also came from the J3. But it will be a corner for Avondale. As Krzyzewski slices it through. Deflected. And here's Oscar Colgate-Jones. And it's a free kick for Avondale on the edge of the box. And this is dangerous.
Yeah, that's Krzyzewski following through there after the ball got cut out. Colgate, I think it was. That's a disappointing challenge there right on the edge of the box. An opportunity here for Avondale, who now, I think we're into the last 10 minutes of normal time. Is an opportunity maybe to force the 2-0. It's not a comfortable scoreline, 1-0, and Dandenong have shown that they're coming more into the game attacking.
And it's slided in and over the bar for Avondale. And they won't be in any rush. It's another one, of course, 1-0. 3 points is 3 points. And they're out of substitutions as well. Of course, a game in just 3 days' time, Avondale against Sterling Macedonia in the Cup at Green Gully Reserve. They are playing that fixture Tuesday night. It's Corny Perkins. Wilmsmore has gone out for another throw. Wellsmore up against. There's one more change coming on. Looks like Jackson Lino is getting ready to come on. Of course. Looks like that might be all of them for them. There's the young gun, Abuzba, chasing the ball, but he's Tom Manos. Krzyzewski chasing. Mustafa. Still Mustafa. Mustafa up against Towns. Mustafa. Back to Grogic. He goes wide to Anaba. And through the middle. Athrenios. And it's back out again, and there will be confirmation of that change. And it looks like it will be number 9, Kenny Athiu, coming off. Of course, goalless in this game. But it looks like Mustafa has moved into a more central striker position in place of Kenny Athiu, and Jackson Lino comes on. And that's a great ball over the top by Aguek. Zini's there. Seznik. Athrenios. Back to Anaba now. It's gone wide to Sewell. Edwards clears. Valentini to Zinni to Carpenter. And it will be a throw for Carpenter. Long to Valentini to Gerdich. Inaba. It's long to Abuzba. It's Valentini. Cleared. There is a chance of City. They're still on their feet. Sewell. Around 1, around 2. Doesn't get around the 3rd. There's a chance for Avondale to go the other way. And here is Aguek, who goes wide with the outside of the boot. Cross to Stefanzini. He's got to get around Cisnik. And he goes to Trajeski. Back to Carpenter.
Good hustle there by Cesnik. We know that Zinni's got a lot of punchy mobility, caused a lot of damage, but Cesnik, well positioned, one of the, I would say, leading players in the NPL this year, and really knows how to position himself. He's done that 2 or 3 times. That was a dangerous moment there for Dandy City. But also the mobility, they put Mustafa up front. He's shown this second half that he's really got a lot of ability and a lot of surge. And here he goes again.
Here is Mustafa, who goes wide to Abuzba. And he just doesn't make the right decision there. Of course, that could be the inexperience in the senior football. And he crosses the ball in now. And here's a chance for Dandy City to make it 1-1. And it's Vali Cesnik. We just spoke about him, and he's been the difference maker today.
Yes, we've talked about Cesnik. We know that he's fantastic on the one-on-one, on the dribble. Took a risk. He's been playing pretty much on the right side in defence and just decided on that surge. As you mentioned, a Guzba, a bit of inexperience, but got the second ball. And Dandy City, right place, right time. I mean, fantastic finish. Manos had no answer. 1-1, Dandy City really back in this game. And maybe Avondale, the head's a little bit down. They know they put a lot of work in this. And they've had the opportunities, but have not put the game away. And we've only got 3.5 minutes, and really it's all up for grabs, and we don't know who's going to maybe get that final goal, but really Dandy City, persistence, and Cesnik, dangerous player.
Of course, as mentioned earlier, began his career at South Melbourne, moved over to the Netherlands, played in the Eredivisie youth leagues, did move over to Port Melbourne Sharks from there, then rejoined the Sharks in 2022. They had 7 goals in 2022-2023 season. Of course, 1-1 now, and there's not long left on the clock here. Of course, Avondale don't have the opportunity to make any changes anymore. Dandenong have made 4 changes. Of course, 3 different breaks. So they can't actually make it on. Aiden Bryce. Jackson Corney Perkins goes to Towns. Bryce. Wellsmore to Perkins. Still Corney Perkins. Shouts for offside, and it's gone back the other way.
Yeah, Courtney Perkins has had on the right side, has been able to get in some decent positions, but Avondale now looking for a few answers. Had control of the game, but Dandy City, and it's interesting with Dandy City because they're a team that is able to, take the pressure. They have got a good finish, and they took obviously a few on, but they were able to, put pressure on Avondale. A little bit of concentration, maybe a lucky ball, but Cesnik finishing it off. So right now they're in a strong position to hold on to this draw.
Of course, we also did see Kenny Athiu was sitting quite deep as well the majority of this game. Mustafa, the physicality is just worked out in the favour, and Nick Tolios has done very well there, and that's offside for Mustafa. Of course, Yagub Mustafa Another one of those A-League academy players as well. Spent some time at Perth Glory. Began his senior career at Inglewood United. Spent 3 years at Perth Glory's NPL side. Moved over to Perth Soccer Club, Bentley Greens, Hume City, South Melbourne. He's signed for Hajduk from Wollongong Wolves. And it's now 89 minutes on the clock here.
Yeah, we've seen some ex-Perth Glory players who maybe didn't get a chance. Jen Albano's another one. He was captain of the NYL team, I believe, at Perth Glory at one stage. And obviously got Mustafa as well.
It's 4 minutes added on. And that's a great ball through the middle, and it's offside. Arthurenios. But the fourth official has indicated a minimum of 4 minutes will be added on. And there is still time. Of course, we've seen last season we did see these two teams face off in a 1-0 win, and it was George Mells who scored the winner in the 96th minute. And it was absolute scenes here. Of course, last time it was 3-0 in the return leg, and this is a great result for Dandenong City Hajduk. And it's gone long by Marram. And they want more, Dandy City. And here's Manos. To Edwards. Carpenter. Down the line to Zinni. Goes to Valentini. And he's Zinni now. He's chased by the goal scorer. And Zinni through the legs. And it doesn't get through them all the way. It's almost 2-1 here. But there's more of an opportunity now for Dandenong City going the other way. Carpenter heads it on to Edwards. And he's under pressure, and he goes back to Manos. Carpenter. Edwards. To Manos. It's a long ball by Manos, and he goes headed away by Yanakopoulos. There's Agawek. Dropping really deep, Agawek. And here's a chance. Arthurenios headed.
Yeah, I could see Yanakopoulos is pushing up quite a bit. It's into the midfield, playing probably as a 6, and really that's been a bit of a change. And Dandy City have really shown a bit more attacking mindset this second half. Look, most likely Bazzini. One of the few times someone got behind Sesnik. We know Sesnik scored the goal, done very well defensively. He'd be a bit disappointed with that finish, but a big save there in these last 3-4 minutes by the Dandy City keeper and keeping them in the game. But Dandy City also going for the result. You can see the pressure by Mustafa pushing up, as well as Theranos. So it's still up for grabs these last few minutes. Ross?
And neither side are going to give up here at Avenger Park. Just 2 minutes left on the clock here. Less, 90 seconds. Here's Bryce. Transevsky. Still Transevsky getting pulled back, but he's still going. Still Transevsky. He's dispossessed. Here's Alino. Knocks it on to Yanakopoulos. Tries to feed it on. It's gone out for a throw. And they'll want to get underway very quickly, Avondale. Towns. To Carpenter. Chested. To Agawek. Back to Carpenter. Agawek. Taken down. No foul. And it's play on. Edwards. To Carpenter. One final opportunity for them to get something out of this game. Edwards over to Carpenter, and there's Agawek. And there we have it. It's 1-1 at Avenger Park, Avondale and Dandenong City.
Yes, 1-1. I would say Dandy City would probably be happy with the results, although I can see some of the players with their head down. A little bit compactness there. They kept Avondale at bay their last minute, making sure that Avondale very dangerous in opening up the channels or through the wing backs, but the results probably fair, I would say, Ross. I mean, Dandy City, especially the second half, showed a lot more, and we'll be happy. Both of these teams are chasing something. Obviously, Avondale want to keep up with Heidelberg. Dandy City on the cusp of the 6. Good result for them because, you know, you're playing a very top team in Avondale, so probably an even result. And I would say in the second half, Dandy City, with a few adjustments, some tactical changes, really took it up to Avondale, and Zinni had a chance there, probably disappointed with his finish, but they weren't as dangerous as in the first half. And fascinating game. I hope all the viewers enjoyed it. And Ross, great to commentate with you, and I think both these teams will have a final say come final time.
Yes, thanks, Peter. It was, of course, Heidelberg do lead the NPL Victoria by 5 points now, and it all comes down to that game in 2 weeks' time as Heidelberg take on Avondale at Olympic Village. And that, we would say, would decide who wins the NPL Victoria table. And Dandenong City, just 1 point from finals as they face Oakley Cannons next week in Dandenong. I've been Ross Papadakis. I've been joined today by Peter Paleologus. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back next week for some more NPL Victoria action.